Good evening and welcome. I'm George Latimer, Westchester County Executive, and this is the first of two public forums that we're going to be holding to hear input from Westchester residents regarding the proposed fiscal year 2020 budget for Westchester County. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please stand for a moment of silence as we think of the young men and women who are deployed across the globe. You may be seated. Thank you, young ladies, for your help. We appreciate it greatly. Thank you. We want to start by thanking Sarah Lawrence for the gracious use of this wonderful new facility, and we're glad that every person who attended has come. This is the first of two sessions in which we're inviting residents to come and speak about whatever it is that's on their mind relative to what they'd like to see in the fiscal year 2020 budget. I'm joined by Deputy County Executive Ken Jacobs, and the Director of Operations, our COO, if you will, of the county, Joan McDonald. And also with us is Gideon Grandy, who is number 2 in our budget department and a critical person in putting together our county budget. We're also joined by 2 members of the Westchester County Board of Legislators, Terry Clements, who represents parts of New Rochelle and Pelham, and David Tubiello, who represents parts of Yonkers and Mount Vernon. Thank you both for being in attendance. The process for tonight is very simple. This is an input session where you are the program. We're not going to make a presentation about the budget. The budget is not put together yet. The budget is due to be submitted to the Board of Legislators on Friday, November 8th. And we have received from various departments, chiefs, commissioners, their requests for money. We have a number of not-for-profit organizations that have made requests for funding, and we now have to make the decisions as to what that budget looks like as it will be presented to the Board of Legislators. The Board will receive it on Friday, November 8th, and they will have slightly more than a month to deliberate on the budget, and they will hold 3 public hearings, one at the Dole Center in Mount Vernon, a second one at the Cortland Town Center, and those will both be in the month of November. And then in the first week of December, there'll be a 3rd and final public hearing at the Board of Legislators in White Plains that first week of December. Those meetings, the dates are published and they'll be made available to everybody to see. But for the moment, the 2 meetings that we have this week and next week are from the executive branch looking for input before we finalize the budget. That is a new direction. To the best of our knowledge, no executive branch at any level of government has ever asked for public input before they put the budget together. And so this is an opportunity for us to hear from the public in whatever it is that's important to them. If you'd like to speak, we'd ask you to just sign in. We ask for cards. We don't need a lot of information, just your name, so we know who we're calling on at that moment in time, and then we'll call you in sequence. We'd like you to limit your remarks to 3 minutes. I know that's difficult. I have extreme difficulty limiting my remarks to 3 minutes. But we know there's going to be a lot of people. It looks as if we have something like 30 or so speakers. We will be here until the last person who wishes to be heard will be heard. You, on the other hand, do not have to stay here until the last speaker's heard if you don't want to. I understand the Yanks are playing tonight. I understand there's a Democratic debate tonight. I gather there's a home-cooked meal on your stove tonight. Whatever reason it may be for you to leave early, you're welcome to stay. You're welcome to leave as you see fit. Obviously, the different speakers are going to talk about whatever is important to them. The only thing I'd ask you to do is show normal good courtesy. If you are agitated about an issue or an idea, you can certainly show your passion. But we appreciate if you don't insult anybody, particularly somebody else in the room. As you can see, we did not bring police officers in here to maintain the peace. We, unlike other levels of government, think that people can disagree civilly without having to worry about fists being thrown and chairs being thrown. I say that half facetiously, but we all know that passions run high these days in politics. What we're trying to do is listen to all voices tonight, whatever their point of view may be. And this is not an occasion where we're going to respond to everything unless, an attack of some sort is delivered to us. And the reason why is that we have other forums for that. We have a series called Coffees and Conversations, where I attend with the local county legislator and we sit and we have the kind of Q&A. We had one a week ago in Scarsdale with Ben Boykin. The weekend before that, I was at the Nodine Hill Community Center on the other side of Yonkers. This coming weekend, I think I'm with Chris Johnson at the Riverfront Library, and Terry Clemens and I will be doing it in a couple of weeks in New Rochelle. So that is an appropriate give and take form. This is an input from you to us, and after you finish giving your report, we want to hear the next person give their input. You're welcome to submit written statements of any length, and you can submit them now, or you can submit them over the next few days. Since we have to submit the budget to the Board of Legislators by November 8th, that is the sort of the drop dead time for us. Let's assume we need a few days in advance. If you're going to communicate with us, you can get information on how to communicate by email directly, so you can send us a follow-up document. We have a number of staff people here from our executive branch. I see Joe Scamato, Carolyn Fortina, Chelsea Pagano, Carl Pagano, a number of other people are probably scattered about the room. You're welcome to submit written testimony. When we submit the budget to the Board of Legislators, the public input process continues. And it continues where you'll have a budget to comment on, and then you'll be speaking to the other co-equal branch of government to ask them to either make changes in the budget or to accept elements of what they've received in the budget. Over the course of November, when they're finished with their public hearings, they'll have ultimately a meeting, I think it's scheduled for Monday, December 9th, in which the board would adopt the budget, and then the executive branch, myself, has the right to veto the budget or line item veto the budget. We will try to negotiate out differences if they exist prior to that point, so that we don't get into the veto override type of contentiousness. If we can come to common ground, we hope to come to common ground. As long as you keep your comments respectful, proper language, you can talk about any element of county government that you want. There is no budget before you, so you're not looking at how much we have put aside for one function or another. So just speak from your heart about what you think is important, and that certainly will be helpful input to us. Ken, anything you'd like to share?
First, again, on the county executive's behalf, he certainly has, this is the second year in a row that does this for the public input before we really get started. So again, thank you all for coming out this evening. We're really looking forward to hearing all of the input that you have as we work together to shape the budget. And I will pass it down to the Director of Operations, Joe McDonald.
Thank you. I have nothing further to add, just really looking forward to all the input that we'll hear tonight. Thanks.
So again, if you're not already on our list of cards, just please indicate to our staff, fill out a card. We'll be replenishing them as we go along. I guess we're starting to replenish them already. And I'll announce the first speaker to come to the podium. You'll stand at the podium. We'll put the clock on for 3 minutes. If you're in the middle of a comment, at the end of 3 minutes, we'll give you a little bit more time, but at some point, if it looks like you're taking longer than that, I'm going to ask you please to wrap up your comments courteously, if you would. If I mispronounce your name, let me apologize in advance. Sometimes I can't properly read the name, and that's my fault, but we're going to try to get your name right. No insult intended. If I mispronounce your name, when you come to the microphone, just correct it. And so we'll have it proper as we go forward. I will also announce the next two people who will follow the speaker up so we will know where you are in the queue line. We do have a lot of speakers here. I believe if you submitted a card, it's in here, so you should be okay. With those as the ground rules, the first speaker this evening is Alex Golimbu, and he will be followed by Shanann Golimbu and George Brooks or Brox. So, Mr. Golimbu, you're the first speaker.
Yeah, wait.
Yes, please, to the podium. Sorry.
Well, I didn't expect to actually be the first one here. I'll give it a wing anyway. So the only thing I really wanted to speak about was the issue about Scout Field and the proposals before the county as to what may or may not happen with that land. And what I would like to say is I'm the father of a varsity athlete, and who's a very happy varsity athlete, and I'm an athletic person myself. But I think it's very short-sighted to always allocate more money to more and more school fields without actually thinking about what the lasting impact of all these changes are. Every municipality and every village has an abundance of fields, and not only that, but the fields aren't natural at this point anyway, so, I mean, there's a lasting impact on the community that lasts long beyond what every parent is going to think about for a few years of their own children are in athletics, and I'm one of those parents. So I think that's all I really have to say.
Thank you very much. Next speaker is Shanann Galimbo. She will be followed by George Brooks and Jerry Fisher.
Shenandoah Valley. So you asked that I correct it, so I will. Thank you for having us tonight. I appreciate you coming here this evening. I just wanted to build on what Alex said a little bit, in that my concern specifically about Scout Field is the nature preserve that's happening there. If you spend any time in this grand open space right now, we're seeing deer for the first time entering that space. I get concerned if we take some of that space away and make it fenced in, that the deer will then end up on the street and we'll end up with potentially more automobile accidents. I get concerned about the trees that could potentially be cut down that birds come back to and re-nest in every year. I want to make sure that as we consider what's being done with these grand open spaces of southern Westchester, where we've lost so many of them already, that we're taking into consideration not only the environmental impact, but the community impact, the opportunity for people to go and play and run and not have spaces that are segregated off specifically for one community or one group. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is George, again, Brooks, followed by Jerry Fishoff and Matthew Craywick.
Hi there, George Brooks. I live here in Yonkers. I'm an attorney, and I enjoy nature. And I'm here to talk about Scout Field. Some people say it's about dogs, and maybe it is, but it's about humans. Humans, when humans enter nature, there's this phenomenon called biophilia. And when we are in nature, it's our cortisol levels go down, our serotonin levels go up, and it's a sense of mind clarity and feeling at peace. I'm dressed like this because I went to Central Park today. Just got back, so I enjoyed walks in the park. And this is the only park I can walk to from my house. And yes, I have a dog, but I also live with myself. There's a baseball field right next to Scout Field that's all fenced in. It's got a soccer field on it. If there's a need to play within the fenced-in area that's just for sports, why not use the baseball field? We brought in a fellow attorney from Pace University who told us that the baseball field didn't even go through the right legal processes to get that established. And yet there's a lock on the fence that restricts us from going in. We don't need more locked fenced spaces. We can share the field with soccer players, right? Why can't we come up with a win-win solution? And not only one-dimensional. So it's for humans, it's for us, and anytime you build a wall, that's not a good solution.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks. The next speaker is Jerry Fishoff, and he will be followed by Matthew Craywick and Cindy Canisher.
Thank you. I've been with Eastchester Soccer since its inception, which is 43 years. To say that we have in Eastchester, especially to say we have in Westchester, especially lower Westchester, an abundance of fields, people must be looking at something else. We have very short fields all over, especially in lower Westchester, especially Scout Field, where Eastchester, Bronxville, Mount Vernon, and Yonkers come together. We've been promised the field many, many times, both by Republican government officials and Democratic government officials. We're still waiting. We hope you won't disappoint us. And by us, I mean the kids. This isn't for us. It's for the kids. We're short fields. Thank you.
Thank you. Matthew Craywick, followed by Cindy Canisher and Myra Saul.
Good evening. I'm also here to talk about Scout Field. I know most people must be getting really bored of this at this point, but I do want to express my objection to the idea of the majority of Scout Field being taken over for a single use. It is my understanding that the plan is to fence it in and lock the gates, and I don't think that's a democratic use of the land in a county park that is situated within the city of Yonkers. As it is also my understanding that in order to be a member of the Eastchester Youth Soccer Association, you have to be a resident of Eastchester. So it seems to me like county park land in the city of Yonkers would be restricted for use by people who aren't from Yonkers. And it just seems like inverse eminent domain. That's it, thank you.
Next speaker is Cindy Canisher, and she will be followed by Myra Saul and Jeff Minich.
Good evening. I'm Cindy Canisher, the Executive Director of the Pace Women's Justice Center. I'm also on the board of the Westchester Women's Agenda. So on behalf of the Westchester Women's Agenda, I'm here to ask you to support our position that the county provide a 10%, minimum of a 10% increase for the not-for-profit contracts this year for all the not-for-profits who provide such essential services to so many members of our communities in Westchester. And the Pace Women's Justice Center is one of those organizations. We provide legal services for victims and survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, and domestic violence. And so often when a survivor of abuse is in a domestic violence relationship or they've been a victim of sexual assault or elder abuse, they find themselves alone, they need immediate help, and they don't know where to go, and they don't know who to turn to, and they feel overwhelmed. And Pace Women's Justice Center and other organizations that we partner with are very important to be there, for us to be there, to provide the help that these people need. And unfortunately, the need for our legal services is not stopping, and in fact, it's growing. This past year, we opened a walk-in legal clinic. We thought for victims of sexual assault, domestic violence, and elder abuse, to come in on an emergency basis without appointments. We thought maybe we'd get 25 people walking in a month. We're actually getting between 65 and 75 people coming in a month. We think we're going to serve about 1,000 clients a year, which is in addition to the almost 3,000 clients that we've already previously been serving. So we know that the need is there, and we know that people are desperate for this legal help. I know that the county values our work and understands the importance of our services, and I thank you for the support that you've given in the past. And I'm here to ask you to support us, continue to support us, and give us the 10% increase. Because the funding that we have is actually not paying for all the work that we're doing. We have over 40 volunteers at the center who donate more than 12,000 hours, volunteer hours, which equals more than $2 million worth of services. Without our volunteers, we couldn't provide all the help that our clients need. So we're doing the best we can to leverage our funding, and we want to continue to do it. Honestly, the 10% increase is not going to make up that difference, but every little bit helps. So thank you, and I appreciate you for listening.
As our next speaker, Myra Saul, comes to the microphone, we've been joined by another county legislator, the Honorable Mary Jane Shimsky, representing parts of Greenberg, villages, and some unincorporated Greenberg. Mary Jane, thank you for being here. Our next speaker is Myra Saul. She will be followed by Jeff Minich and Dennis Durin. I'm sorry? Durin. Thank you, sir. Sorry. Myra.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I am a co-leader of Innisville Scarsdale and a co-organizer of Westchester for Change. Approximately 2 years ago, the Latimer administration took office and faced an enormous task. The previous Astorino administration had decimated county government by firing or laying off many people from critical jobs and by generally implementing a starve-the-beast mentality. In 2019, a rebuilding process started. But the county has limited resources. It cannot fund every single thing on its wish list. It must deploy its resources prudently. No one is in favor of wasteful spending. I think everyone, whether a Democrat or Republican, can agree on that principle. Westchester County has some of the highest property taxes in the country. Although the county's taxes are only a small portion of that amount, Westchester taxpayers are sensitive to any increases in taxes. Changes in the federal income tax code, which puts a ceiling on the deductibility of state and local taxes, has exacerbated the situation. Thus, it is critical that any county agency should not be appropriated funds in the 2020 budget that doesn't need them. With these principles in mind, let's look at one area of the county's budget, the Westchester Board of Elections, that currently has an overfunded capital budget and arguably overfunded operating budget. Under state law, the State Board of Elections determines which voting machines are certified for use in elections in the state. Each county BOE determines which machines will be used in the county's elections from these certified machines. Critically, the funding for the purchase of the machines at the county level, based upon the documents that are available online, the Westchester BOE has an overfunded capital budget and has no need for additional capital budget funds. In 2006, $4 million was appropriated for the purchase of machines, of which $2.474 million has been bonded. That leaves $1.526 million awaiting bond authorization. In 2018, $4.62 million was appropriated for the purchase of machines, of which none has been bonded. In total, $6.146 million has been appropriated but not yet bonded. As for the operating budget of the BOE, last year's budget has vague line items which do not give one confidence that there is an actual need for additional funds. For example, in 2019 budget, the BOE has appropriated approximately $5.8 million for, quote, material and supplies expenses. What is this? How much money is just lying around with the BOE? We know that they used operating funds to purchase disputed voting machine just a couple of months ago. There are also 104 positions at the BOE, some of which are unfilled. Which positions are these? Are they really needed? Unless until there is specificity so that the public can understand how the BOE spends its money and whether that money is spent well, there should be no additional funds appropriated to the operating budget as well. Thank you.
Next we have Jeff Minich, followed by Dennis Duran and Leslie Heiner. Jeff.
Thank you, George. It's actually Jeff Minich, but that's okay. There are two things that I wanted to raise for your consideration. First of all, I am opposed to the soccer field that's been proposed for Upper Scout Field, and my opposition really it speaks to a recognition that we have very limited park space in Lower Westchester County, and I think that it's generally acknowledged that we need to address and elevate quality of life as a priority for residents of the county. And I can think of very few other public resources that elevate the quality of life for most residents in this area than having access to an open green space. And that's really the basis of my opposition to that. The other issue that I'd like to call to your attention is the fact that I think that the county needs to take a clearer, more decisive leadership position attacking water quality issues having to do with the Bronx River. And I speak this as a 20-year resident of Bronxville and someone who's spent a good deal of time up and down the Bronx River and seen kids and animals swimming in the river. The fact of the matter is that there have been some studies done in the last few years by the science department at the Bronxville School on pollution in the Bronx River. And what they've discovered is that there are extraordinarily high levels of colofecal pollutants, and some of which they believe actually leaks from some of the local municipalities, including the village of Bronxville, by the way, which the mayor is aware of. And because it's so expensive to investigate essentially the sources of that pollution, unfortunately municipalities just run away from the problem. They don't want to face it, they ignore it, they deny it. And I think that the county has the resources and has the personnel and the scientific knowledge to actually tackle this issue, because again, it's a quality of life issue. We should be able, kids should be able to swim in the Bronx River. They should be able to take a kayak in and not have to worry about, getting an infection of some kind. So anyway, that's all I had to say. Thank you.
Dennis Jordan is the next speaker, followed by Leslie Heiner and Susan Burkett.
Yes, I'm a 25-year Westchester County resident, most of that time in Mount Vernon. But my enjoyment of Westchester began a long time before that, when I considered my vacation to begin when we got to the Bronx-Westchester line, and I got to ride through the parkways of Westchester. And I thought Westchester was the country, and that there was open space and forested land. And when I moved here, I found it was not quite as good as I thought, that the parkways were little slender roads that didn't have an awful lot of trees, really. But it still felt nice, and I found places that I could enjoy, like Huntwoods Park in Mount Vernon, Scoutfield Park, in the parks of New Rochelle, and so on. I'm kind of disappointed now to find that some of that open space is being taken for purposes that seem more than adequately served. And what's more, I'm going to be the one who's paying for it. It's going to cost me $40 so that somebody can take one of my parks away from me. I don't go for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. A point of clarification is warranted here. At this point, our administration, not quite 2 years in duration, has taken no action to implement the arrangements that was made by the prior administration. So let's be clear that the arrangements that were made were done in the prior administration, and we've been assessing what the correct path is. The park today looks as it did 2 years ago, but your input and the input of everybody else is welcome. Leslie, I guess that's okay. No, it's a lie. It's Leslie Heiner, Susan Burkett, and Mark Redmond are the next three speakers.
Good evening. I'm here to speak in opposition to the proposal to turn Scott Field into a soccer field. I agree with those who've come before me, and I want to stress that I've lived in the immediate vicinity of Scott Field since I was born. So I'm a 63-year resident of Yonkers who has visited that since I can remember. Now, I also want to bear witness to the fact that in my time living in Yonkers, I've seen almost all of the natural peripheral green space been given over to various well-intentioned, I'm going to say, uses for public use. And what I see again and again is that with each project there are unforeseen consequences, and that's really what I fear with the development of Scout Field. That when we prioritize its use for sports, we're really forgetting the fragility of that environment. I live in a house that, along with many of my neighbors, that has seen in recent years catastrophic flooding from the Bronx River and the Grassy Spring River. Councilman Latimer can bear witness to this. You've walked through my yard just to investigate some of the sources that are problematic. This is largely because almost every bit of the natural floodplain that once existed has now been given over to development. I remember after the last disastrous flood, when FEMA came in 2011, there was an article in the local paper that spoke to the idea that each little municipality, when it undertakes even what seems to be a micro development, a very, very small project, it might be something as simple as putting in a school basketball court or a playing field, not even a large one, as is proposed here, which would use the majority of the space for that purpose. They can't really evaluate the impact that it's going to have on adjacent communities and maybe on the people who live in the immediate vicinity. Even the reconfiguration of a small area of land, even the cutting down of mature trees, which have a capillary action, and the changing of the natural floodplain, can make a difference of maybe an inch or two in the way the water flows. Now, hydro engineers will predict how they think it's going to be, but until that happens again, you can't know the impact that that's going to have on me and my neighbors. And I mean, it can be catastrophic. Right? I could lose my first floor if the water is that much higher again. And people who live remote from the area that's proposed for development, they won't have to face those consequences, but I will, and my neighbors will. And we feel really passionate about that. The fragility of that environment, the sensitivity of that particular place where the Bronx River estuary comes together has been pinpointed by many, many, many hydro engineers as being problematic for drainage. Please, let's not mess with it. Once you do it, there is no remediation. There's going to be no funds for people coming and saying, well, we're sorry, let's see what we can go in to do to fix it. There is really, let's not make a short-sighted decision on this, because it impacts the neighborhood so profoundly in really dangerous ways.
Leslie, we've hit the 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Susan Burkett, followed by Mark Redmond and John Junker.
Hi, I can confirm just that I did speak with Mr. Latimer on Saturday. He did tell me that no decision has been made, so we are thankful for that. I'm here, really, I've been involved with this project since day one. I'm a 30-year resident of this area, and I've been enjoying Scoutfield as now a parent, a dog owner, just somebody that's been enjoying going here. I speak really more from a passionate point of view. I think that any kind of privatization of a public parkland equals exclusion, and exclusion is wrong. I think that kids have every right to enjoy the soccer field, but it should not be fenced in, it should not be locked up. That's wrong. I'm also something of a history buff, and I've said many times I was delighted to learn that President Kennedy, when he was a young kid, was a Boy Scout on that very field. If you lock up Scout Field and exclude people, you're keeping the Boy Scouts from enjoying what's been their territory for 100 years now. That's wrong. I just think that this is something we need to think about. Parkland is parkland. People have the power to decide how things are going to be, and I think that everybody should look at this as what's going to happen if we take away green space. It could be for the kids, but it's not just for the kids. It's for the playing soccer. It's for the kids who want to come and do science experiments, research, kids who want to walk around, who want to just enjoy themselves. This is nothing to be trifled with, and I think that taking away park space is going to just be a detriment to this town. The people have the power, and the power is right here for us, and I beg you not to do anything to take this power from us. Leave the park as it is, from the historical perspective and as a green space. That's it. Thanks.
Next speaker is Mark Redmond, and he'll be followed by John Junker and Karen Scotchy.
Hi, I'm Mark Redmond. I'm a resident of Bronxville. I'm also the president of Eastchester Youth Soccer Association. Eastchester Youth Soccer Association, for everybody to know, serves the children of Eastchester, Bronxville, and Tuckahoe. We're also a member of the Westchester Youth Soccer League. So the redevelopment of a portion of Scout Field for use for soccer would benefit everybody, all children throughout Westchester, not just in one area. We have, just in our organization alone, there are 1,500 children playing soccer. To address a couple of the points that were raised, Jerry referenced the availability of fields. Our biggest problem right now is availability of fields. We struggle to get fields for the kids to play every single weekend. Our sole goal for this is to keep the kids active, keep the kids engaged, keep them off the streets, and keep them healthy. That's what we're about. We're a nonprofit organization that are here for the betterment of all the children in our community. And I know I may be one of the few that are speaking on behalf of Eastchester Youth Soccer, but I want you to know there's quite a few parents and players in here, and if they could just raise their hands for those that are in support of it, I don't want you to lose sight of that. We came here and moved here to Westchester for our children. We are open to keeping spaces open. We're not pushing for it to be locked. We're not pushing for it to be gated. We want a safe, usable space for our children to enjoy. I'm confident that Westchester County and the legislators can do that in a way that could be used for the enjoyment of many. There can be room for dog walkers, of course. I have a dog. I love my dog. I love my kids too. And I want to make sure that we have a safe place for children to play, enjoy themselves. Our program is growing every single year. And this is going to be a problem that we have to address so that we can keep them active and healthy. Thank you for your consideration of this. I really appreciate that you're seeking out everybody's opinion. I'm glad I had an opportunity to address some of the concerns that are out there. I do think this is an open space that many people can use and can use successfully, but we do need to build out our park space for the maximum use of the residents of Westchester County. And I do think having a safe, usable field at Scout Field that doesn't exclude people is a great way to do it. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Next speaker is John Junker, and he'll be followed by Karen Scacci and Joan Golan.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is John. I'm your senior bacteriologist up at the Valhalla Lab. It's located at 10 Dana Road. A lot of people don't know we have a laboratory in this county. It's one of the few counties that does. Do take advantage of the free lead testing that the governor has put out to you. You just Google free lead test, state of New York. 8 labs are mentioned. One of them is your lab in Valhalla, New York. You get your lead pipes, your home pipe water tested for free for lead. What I'm here for tonight is to talk about cuts that have happened in the past, probably going back 12 years ago. Your health department, along with the Department of Environmental Services, used to monitor rivers, streams, sewage waterways, looking for where the leaks are coming from. And what they do, this being the sanitarians hired by the county in the health department, they go out with a dye and they test certain spots to find out who's got illegal sewer hookups, what manufacturers or industries are polluting our rivers. Someone mentioned earlier about swimming in the Bronx River. No. Hutchinson River. No. Don't even wade in. Don't stick your hand in those rivers. There's way more than fecal in them, okay? There's so many chemicals in the Bronx River. When I was a kid, you could fish for trout in the Bronx River. That's no longer the case. But getting back to the budget cuts that have occurred, the number of sanitarians that the county has to go out and do these samplings in, there's too few people. The last administration knocked it down to the minimum. And there's more important things in their eyes in monitoring the waterways. All right? Your health, mosquitoes. They had different projects to work on. We have to get back the funding to the health department so that they can start to bring samples back into the lab so that we can find out, start tracking where the pollution is coming from. All right? If you don't know where it's coming from, you can't do anything that it's there. It's already there. So that's a big thing that I'd like to see happen, that we get some funding back first to the health department and then to the lab to actually produce some results. And my warning here is that there's a lot of volunteer organizations, environmental volunteer organizations out, and they are producing data. However, our labs are not registered labs. The procedures they use aren't followed according to the EPA standards. They are now reporting data to the EPA. This past year, some of your beaches, some of your lakes were reported as foul from them. Sampling that we did from the county did not show this. So you have to be aware that the dog might be starting to be wagged by the tail, okay? Unless we put some more money. Thank you.
The next speaker is Karen Scacci, followed by Joan Golan and Charlene and Jasmine Herrera. As a group.
Good evening. Thank you for having us. In regards to the county's 2020 budget, I am assuming that also in that budget you include your capital planning. And with that in mind, I would like to suggest that Scout Field be considered into the Westchester Legacy Program, which would be part of your capital budget. It fits all of the criteria for becoming a legacy park, which includes linear parks, urban parks, active recreation facilities, as well as large tracts, open space, forever preserved in their natural state. Having it become part of the legacy program may be able to satisfy both sides of the argument that we're seeing here today. There is already field space there that can be recreated or kept up to its current state and still preserve Upper Scout Field, which a lot of people who don't realize is also a buffer to Mount Vernon residents who live on Bremerton Avenue and the surrounding communities, where the trees and the natural surroundings protect them from the sounds of the parkways and all the noise pollution. And if you go in there and take all that stuff down, those backyards are gone. So if you make this part of the legacy program, which there is no reason it shouldn't be, according to the Westchester Legacy Program website, Scout Field would be enjoyed by everybody. And everybody would have equal opportunity for it to stay as it is and enjoy it in its entirety. Thank you.
Next speaker is Joan Golan, followed by Charlotte and Jasmine Herrera and Joan Arachi.
Thank you, County Executive Latimer, Deputy County Executive Jenkins, and colleagues. I have 31 compelling reasons not to put a soccer field in Upper Scout Field, and I'm talking about the 31 mature trees that would be chopped down. When I expressed this concern to Legislator Corwin, she said, oh, we'll plant new trees. It is not the same in terms of carbon removal, flood mitigation, and many other things. And one oak tree harbors 238 insects, many of them beneficial insects, food for the birds. I mean, you would be really destroying the whole ecosystem, as well as removing the benefits of trees. And I want to point out that some of the trees are roadside trees. Roadside trees reduce indoor pollution by 50%. Go on the Arbor Foundation website and you'll see many, many compelling reasons not to chop down trees. Including the fact that they're a good investment for our public dollars. I'd like to see more trees in Scout Field. It's been found that every tree yields benefits that are 2 to 5 times the investment. Benefits include cleaner air, lower energy costs, improved water quality and stormwater control, and increased property values. Property values are increased by anywhere between $7,000 to over $105,000 by having that green space. The loss of green space is a public crisis. The Trust for Public Land has said we're losing 6,000 acres of green space a day. This is the only beautiful meadow open area. And by the way, I do not have a dog. It's not just dog people that care about Scout Park. I like to go and bird watch and meditate, walk around. I like to look at the dogs. With all due respect, I think trees are our best friends, but I like dogs too.
Let's not open up that.
As for our children, they need clean air even more than they need sports fields. And none of the... And the mom and the grandmom, they all played sports, but they've already got a soccer field in Lower Scout Field. You know, there's a compromise already. In effect, Lower Scout Field, frankly, has been destroyed as a park, but it's there for the sports fields. Anybody wants to know, I have a list of 12 other fields in Eastchester that can be used. Maybe if there aren't enough, you know, and I speak as the grandmother of athletes, I think maybe there's too much, you know, sports. Kids also need other things, including an open-air classroom in Scout Field. So basically, as an environmental issue, as a public health issue, we need to preserve Upper Scout Field and invest on it to make it even a better park than it is. Thank you.
The next speakers are two young girls, Sherilyn and Jasmine Herrera. They will be followed by Jonah Ratchick and Michael Kaufman.
Good night. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm Claudia Barbieri from Family Service Society of Yonkers, JCY Westchester Community Partners. I'm here to introduce Charlene, Jasmine, and Mom. They have been coming to our summer program for the last 9 years since they were babies. And look at them, listen to them. They need you. They need your help. And we serve thousands of families like them, and they all need your help.
Hi, my name is Charlene. This summer I went to the Summer Reading Buddies program. It was so fun. I felt I was in summer camp. When I first got there, I saw so many kids. I even saw friends from school. I got to pick my own books and read with a mentor. My mentor knew so much about books. It was almost like taking an adventure with him as we read. Not only did I read and talk with my mentor, but there was also fun activity to do for everyone. I really enjoyed the science fair. It was cool to see all the different inventions. I even got to make slime in my own airplane. When I went back to school, I couldn't wait to show my teacher all the books I read. I learned so much and I can't wait to go back next summer. Please don't take this program away, otherwise I won't have any place to go to learn and have fun next summer. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And girls, just so you know, there's no plan to take the program away. I assume that the organization is asking for additional funds to add to what we already have. Next speaker is Jonah Ratchick, followed by Michael Kaufman and Jan Fisher.
Thank you. Good evening, County Executive Latimer, County Executive Ken Jenkins, Sharon McDonald, staff. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak this evening. Again, I'm sorry, Scout Field. I strongly believe that the intermunicipal agreement that was drafted between former County Executive Rob Astorino and the town of Eastchester to install a fenced-in soccer field at Upper Scout Field in Yonkers is a frivolous project that Westchester County taxpayers just cannot afford. The county's bond rating has been downgraded and we've been assigned a negative outlook for repayment. County taxes are already the highest in the nation, and we taxpayers are already overburdened by costs of essential services. It's horrible to even entertain any additional costs to taxpayers, particularly ones that cede a public park to a single municipality so that it can have the luxury of yet another sports field, while not one blade of grass on both Upper or Lower Scouts fields is within the town of Eastchester or the village of Bronxville, contrary to popular misconception that both fields are in Bronxville. We should not accept that our legacy to our children and grandchildren is removal of natural green space and the burden of huge costs for a limited group to have minimal use at the expense of everyone else. As I hear the details of the proposed benefits of the soccer fields, it becomes more apparent than ever that the intention is to convert a public park into an essentially private facility, which no matter how worthy as a project is not justifiable on land that is in effect stolen for public use. Eastchester has many fields, in excess of 25, within their own borders. Soccer field proposal will not only be humongous and physically restrictive unless you know how to climb a fence, while removing over 95% of public parkland in the fragile Bronx River Reservation and flood zone. This project is not only fiscally irresponsible, but environmentally and morally wrong, while contradicting the spirit and intent of what intermunicipal agreements should look like. The places the sports field with field furniture, scoreboard, bleachers, etc. dangerously close to the Bronx River banks while forever changing the landscape and public use of the park. Many hundreds of Westchester residents, including scores from the Fleetwood Neighborhood Association, have already voiced their opposition to this exorbitantly expensive and frivolous and potentially illegal project. While I begrudge no parent the opportunity to have their children involved in sports, I do have strong feelings about taking a public parkland for the sole purpose of youth soccer at county taxpayer expense, myself included. My own son played many games for EYSA through the years on Parkway Oval and on a multitude of other Eastchester fields, where there are as many as 4 games going on at the same time. But I would never teach him or any child that it is okay to consider only the needs of one group over the many others who use and need this public open green space. Thank you.
Let me just highlight that Westchester County taxes levied by the county government are not the highest in the nation. The aggregate of what you pay in property taxes are, and that is primarily your school taxes. Your school taxes comprise 2/3 of what you pay in taxes. So let's be clear that Westchester County levies about 20% of your total taxes, and that portion of it, which is what we're responsible for, is not the highest in the nation. That fact is often misrepresented over and over. We want to know what the actual fact is. That's not the main point of the speaker's comment, but I do want to correct that fact so that we're clear. Michael Kaufman is the next speaker, followed by Jan Fisher and Rachel Halpern.
Thank you for this opportunity, this unique opportunity to present some ideas before the actual budget is proposed. Very, very commendable. This is a request to County Executive Latimer and the county legislature. Our names are Janice Stites. She's president of the Edith Reed Wildlife Sanctuary, and I'm Michael Kaufman. I'm the treasurer of the organization. We represent nearly 2,000 members of the Edith Reed Wildlife Sanctuary. Our budget request is for 4 full-time assistant curator positions be added to the 2020 budget for all of the 6 nature centers. The reason for this request: the membership of the Friends of Edith Reed Sanctuary is committed to the quality of all Westchester County nature centers. As we know, this administration and legislature have been, over the past 2 years, 2 budget seasons, committed to the parks. During the 8 years prior to 2017, the Parks Department staff had been reduced by over 35%. In the same period of time, we estimate that the 6 nature centers, Reed, Lenoir, Marshland, Trailside, Muscoot Park, and Cranberry, had been cut by almost 50%, from 18 to about 8.5 staff, full-time equivalent staff. It's testimony to the few remaining staff that the nature centers are in as good shape as they are with the severe staff reductions. At this point in time, programs continue, facilities are maintained, and some, like Reed, are actually in better condition now than they were 10 years ago. This great work is accomplished while staff are pulled from one nature center to another and to county initiatives to help with critical needs and cover absences. Nature center staff are also deployed to search for and map invasive plants throughout county property, but there's no program to mitigate the invasive problem, but they still count and map. As many as half of the curators will be able to retire in the near future. When they leave, there will be no knowledgeable, trained, and experienced staff to continue this multifaceted work. So you have an opportunity to make a difference. This county administration and legislature have the opportunity to make a difference. We request that 4 full-time assistant curator positions be added to the current 6 nature centers. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Jan Fisher. She will be followed by Rachel Halpern and Theo Oshiro, And before Jan speaks, we've gotten testimony from the last speaker. You are welcome, if you haven't done it at this point, to submit written testimony as an afterthought tonight. If you don't speak tonight, you're still welcome to submit testimony. Jan Fisher.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Jan Fisher, and I am the Executive Director of Nonprofit Westchester. Thanks to all of you for the opportunity to have input into the budget while it's being developed and before it is released. It is greatly appreciated. I am proud to be here representing the only organization solely dedicated to advancing the interests and critical work of the nonprofit sector. We are 170 members strong. We represent tens of thousands of county employees in the county, and we represent hundreds of thousands of people who receive services. As you know, and as we have discussed, nonprofits have been underfunded for decades, and the past number of years here in our county have exacerbated an already difficult situation. Our work and expertise strengthen all sectors of the economy, benefit all taxpayers, and together, government and nonprofits deliver not nice-to-have services, but must-have services. We need to be funded and promptly contracted in a manner that reflects the expertise we bring to the table and the people we serve as a priority. We need to stop what is now known as the nonprofit starvation cycle, and we do recognize that it is not the job of county government alone to do that, and we clearly cannot do that alone. If not, we are perpetuating rather than working to resolve the systemic racism, sexism, and other issues that have caused and contributed to poverty, hunger, homelessness, poor health, abuse, and disenfranchisement that many of our agencies so expertly and passionately address every day. We are here as a partner with you. We appreciate everything that you do, and we are grateful for your support and understanding. Thank you.
Next speaker is Rachel Halpern. She will be followed by Theo Oshiro and Mabel Arrow.
Hello, my name is Rachel Halpern, and I'm the Chief Program Officer at Legal Services of the Hudson Valley. Westchester County has a long-standing history of supporting legal services, and we are so thankful for the support of the county executive, the deputy county executive, and the board of legislators. We also appreciate that Westchester taxpayers see the important work and role of nonprofits in the county in wanting to create an environment that supports our coworkers, neighbors, and those of us who need it so that we can all thrive together in a diverse, inclusive, and equitable county. In 2018 in Westchester, Legal Services handled 6,670 cases, which impact a total of 15,403 household members. People who can't afford legal representation end up going to court alone, and many lose everything. This means families become homeless, domestic violence survivors cannot get away from their abusers, disabled individuals can't afford the basic necessities in life, children become homeless. Communities endure enormous costs in the form of providing shelter, increased social services, and other emergency services. So many of our neighbors who are just like us endure one major illness, one job loss, or one tragedy, and the result is a desperate situation and someone in need of a helping hand. Oftentimes they need access to courts, they need an attorney to fight for their rights, they need justice, and that's where we make a difference. Westchester County is experiencing a serious affordable housing crisis. Affordable housing is scarce and a valuable resource. In the last 3 years, Westchester lost 3,000 subsidized units, which is a 10% decline. Shelters for both families and individuals are at capacity, and the high cost of sheltering a family is up to $78,000 a year. In 2018, there were 11,493 eviction petitions filed in Westchester, and that does not include the petitions in the county's 36 town and village courts. 95% of landlords go to court with an attorney, and 95% of tenants appear without an attorney. The consequences are dire for families. They're evicted, they enter into unfavorable settlement agreements, they give up, move out, and become homeless. We urge the county to continue to invest in eviction prevention, to provide access to legal representation to residents being evicted. It is clear that the additional $200,000 the county invested last year in eviction prevention in the Yonkers pilot project has been an excellent investment. To date, to the end of September 2019, Legal Services has prevented 100% success rate in representing families and preventing evictions in that pilot program. Almost all the 55 families to date were residing in subsidized affordable apartments. These cases are much more than simply paying the landlord back rent. They are about maintaining the limited and valuable supply of rent-stabilized and subsidized apartments in Westchester. They are about holding landlords accountable for maintaining livable conditions, and they are about equalizing the power imbalance and ensuring that before a basic right of housing is taken away, their legal rights are asserted. We support the Westchester Women's Agenda and their request to provide a 10% increase to nonprofits, and we encourage the county to invest more in eviction prevention. Thank you for your continued support.
The next speaker is Theo Oshiro, followed by Mabel Aragon and Jason Shishiano. Theo.
Good evening. My name is Theo Oshiro. I'm the Deputy Director of Make the Road New York. We are extremely grateful for the county's support of our work to serve low-income immigrant families with immigration and legal services, employment legal services, and much more. And we thank you for the opportunity to comment today. Make the Road New York has over 20 years of experience building dignity and justice for New York's immigrant and working class families. We provide legal services across Westchester County and connect community members to civic engagement opportunities so they can have a hand in improving their lives and neighborhoods. As you know, the federal government is attempting to roll back protections for immigrants, and our communities are under attack. Examples like the rescission of DACA and temporary protective status, the proposed public charge policy would limit immigrants' access to life-saving public benefits. The need for immigration legal services has grown, and immigration legal cases have grown more complex. But legal and social services have not expanded sufficiently to keep pace with the county's growing immigrant population and need. The families we serve are among the lowest income and most exploited. Our limited English proficient clients struggle to access services. Our worker clients face wage theft and discrimination in the workplace, and many of our clients are caught in the dragnet of immigration enforcement and face having their families torn apart. And working poor and undocumented immigrants have a hard time accessing free or low-cost legal services and much-needed emergency relief. At Make the Road New York, we provide legal representation, which has been generously supported by the county. We win back stolen wages, defend individuals against deportation, and help people become citizens, among other critical work. We also provide Know Your Rights workshops, adult education and health access services, and reach thousands every year with nonpartisan civic engagement work and other types of outreach and community education. We are also looking forward to solidify our collective future. We are preparing our communities to participate in the upcoming census, since immigrants are traditionally undercounted. There is too much at stake in the census. Our whole country loses if every single person residing, our whole county loses if every single person residing in the county fails to be counted. Along with our partners in the Westchester Women's Agenda, we thank the County Executive's Office for your ongoing support. And we respectfully request at least a 10% funding increase to the nonprofit items in the budget so that we may continue to carry out our work. Our work can only meet the need with the support of the county and the various other stakeholders who are here today. And I want to thank the county and the organizations here today who are working tirelessly to improve the lives of all Westchester residents. Thank you.
The next three speakers are Mabel Aragon, Jason Shishiano, and Cheryl, I can't read the name, Alderman? I'm sorry, Cheryl. You'll tell me when you come to the microphone. Mabel Aragon.
Good evening. My name is Luis Leon. I'm a staff attorney at Make the Road New York, and I want to volunteer my time to...
Can I interrupt for a second? I have the next card is Mabel Aragon.
Yeah, this is
here.
okay.
Okay, so explain then that you're interpreting on behalf of me.
Correct. Yeah, so I'm volunteering my time to Mabel. We have been representing her since 2017 in her removal proceedings. her and her young daughter Valerie, which I think would also enjoy that reading camp that I'm going to suggest to her. So I'm going to give my time to Mabel.
Hola, buenas noches. Mi nombre es Mabel Aragón. He sido miembro de Mater Road, New York desde 2017. Entré a su oficina buscando un abogado para que me ayudara en mi caso de migración. En ese momento yo era una madre soltera y también estaba embarazada.
Good evening, my name is Mabel Aragón. I've been a member of Make the Road New York since 2017. I went into the offices looking for an attorney so that they could represent me in my case in immigration. At that time, I was a single mother and I was also pregnant.
No tenía quien me ayudara. Era una extraña en un nuevo país con una niña embarazada tratando de tener una nueva vida.
I was a stranger in a new country. I was with my young daughter, and I was trying to create a new life for myself.
Yo escapé de Honduras porque tenía miedo por mi vida, por la de mi hija y por el bebé que tenía dentro. Medita New York alivió mi estrés y ha estado apoyándome en mi caso desde entonces.
I fled Honduras because I was scared for my life and that of my daughter. Make the Road New York has relieved my stress and has supported me in my case since then.
Make the Road tiene más de 20 años de experiencia en la defensa y el empoderamiento de las familias inmigrantes y de la clase trabajadora de Nueva York.
Make the Road New York has more than 20 years of experience in the defense and empowerment of working in immigrant families in New York.
Tienen 23,000 miembros en la ciudad de New York, Westchester y Long Island.
They have more than 23,000 members in the city of New York, Westchester, and Long Island.
Solicitamos respetuosamente un aumento del 5% de nuestra financiación de condado de Westchester en el presupuesto del año fiscal 2020.
We respectfully request a 10% increase to our funding from the Westchester County in the fiscal year 2020 budget.
Con la demanda creciente de nuestros servicios en Westchester, el condado puede proporcionar un apoyo vital que nos ayudará a satisfacer esta necesidad urgente. Gracias por su tiempo.
With the demand of our services in Westchester increasing, the county can provide vital support that will help meet this urgent need. Thank you for your time.
Next is Jason Shishiano. I know I'm not pronouncing it, I apologize.
Shishiano.
Followed by Cheryl, I think it's Sullivan, and Tanisha Miller.
Good evening, I'm Jason Stisciano. I live in Golden's Bridge. I'm president of First Insurance in Tarrytown, and I'm also a member of the New Rochelle YMCA. I'd like to thank you, County Executive Latimer and Deputy County Executive Jenkins for coming to support the YMCA 120th Gala earlier this year. It's terrific to have you there. I have two teenage children. They've never stepped foot in the New Rochelle YMCA. We live 30 miles away and 45 minutes away from the Y, and yet I'm still on the board. Why? Because I live in Westchester, and I believe in the importance of the New Rochelle Y to Westchester's community. I hope you do as well, and my comments tonight will influence your thinking regarding support of the New Rochelle YMCA. For 120 years and counting of serving the most underprivileged youths and seniors on a fixed budget in Westchester County. To help keep Westchester County's institution viable, while sister institutions in Westchester County have succumbed to modern-day mega fitness and lifestyle centers charging $200 a month. While the county's budget is pulled in many directions, can anybody in this room argue that one single organization providing summer camps, after-school, pre-K, and high school programs, youth mental health assistance, and programming for fixed-budget seniors is not worth the county's financial support? Our CEO, Jennifer Ryan Sapsville, who will speak to you soon, requests full funding for a number of important programs. Stability of the Y's Youth Summer Camp Program. Expansion of the Y's after-school programming, including after-school swim lessons for single parents and parents who work 2 jobs. Growth of the Y's pre-K program, including full-day option and teaching of children with special needs. development of programs for high schoolers encouraging college success and interest in government and community involvement, diagnosis and pre-K and after-school programs of currently undiagnosed or underattended to autistic children, and new programs for seniors who are not the target of and have no interest in the $200 mega Uber luxury fitness and lifestyle centers that are infiltrating Westchester's landscapes. If not the New Rochelle YMCA, then where? Who? What? There is one organization that can accomplish all of these lofty goals with support from the county's budget. The New Rochelle YMCA can get it all done. Please support a 120-year-old institution that can change so many lives in need of a place to go. Please support the New Rochelle YMCA.
Cheryl Sullivan, followed by Tanisha Miller and Janice Lubin-Kirschner.
Good evening, I'm Cheryl Sullivan. I've worked at the YMCA for the last 24 years. I am the Director of Administration and also Human Resources. I help families that are receiving DSS get assistance because a lot of times they apply for DSS but they are not paid fully. So I will come in and try to offer them some help with that, with our financial aid, which is limited. I also want to stress that when we are a part of DSS funding, they don't pay all of it. And as Jason might have said, our programs are costly, and it's very expensive to live in New Rochelle and Westchester County, as you know. And it's hard to make ends meet. So we have a lot of families that come there looking to provide child care for them. They have to work. And we accept children, all children. Many have special needs, as Jason may have mentioned. And they're from our community, so we would like to help them. And I urge that you help us, helping the families from Westchester. We spend about $25,000 a year for unfunded scholarships, which we could otherwise take to support the families. $15,000 of that is for summer camp, $10,000 of that is for the youth sports and memberships. And the combined increase with minimum wages and facility costs really puts a strain on our organization. And we need your help. So I urge you to support our funding, to expand our program and support our families. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have next up Tanisha Miller, followed by Janice Lubin-Kirschner and Sally Pinto.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak with you about the needs of county funding to support an important youth development program at the New Rochelle YMCA. I have lived in New Rochelle for all of my life, but I have worked for the New Rochelle YMCA for 11 years. 4 years as a youth development director, I oversee after school, UPK, summer camp, and holiday camp. Over the years, we have helped families and children alike with affordable child care. For example, last year we had a boy that was autistic and nonverbal. He was not able to play with other children, but more alone beside of them. We enjoyed having him with us. However, he had a habit of running and trying to get out of the building. This created an environment where we needed to have 1 or 2 staff to assist him at all times. We were able to provide the necessary care. However, we could not accept him back without a one-to-one counselor. His parents told us that they really would like for him to join our program. The doctor did say that he did show signs of improving his ability to communicate. We did explain to the parents that we would love to have him back, but when they can provide a special needs advocate to assist him during our after-school program. Having the county's help funding programs and personal costs would allow us to adjust our hiring to address the needs of children attending the program. We also try to teach kids healthy eating and physical activities and core values like respect, responsibility, honesty, and caring. Thank you.
Followed by Sally Sally Pinto and Gloria Jordan.
Thank you for this opportunity. I'm Janice Lubin Kirshner, and I'm retired Senior Director from JCY Westchester Community Partners and Family Service Society of Yonkers. I'm also a member of the Westchester Women's Agenda. I'm here tonight to tell you how much I believe in the programs that we do and to remind you of the value of all these mentoring programs and the kinship programs. I ask that you keep them in the budget again this year, and that you consider the 10% increase that Westchester Women's Agenda and all of its members are asking. And now I'd like to turn this over to Felicia Lee Hall-Rosen, who is the co-chair of the advisory board for Family Service Society of Yonkers.
Thank you for giving us the opportunity to address you. So, as Jan said, I'm Felicia Rosen, and I'm co-chair of the advisory board for JCY Division of Family Service Society of Yonkers. More important than being the chairperson of the advisory board is being a volunteer, being a mentor. And it is such a huge thing, and I invite everybody to come and see some of our programs. The one that touches my heart the most is our summer reading parties in the library, and those adorable girls before addressed, told you how meaningful it is for them. It's also incredibly meaningful for the mentors. I can't tell you what it does for me when this past summer, I showed this young lady, this young girl from Austin, a dictionary, a hardcover dictionary. She was so excited to see that this exists, and you could turn pages and see, there was different, children's dictionary, different pictures and words, and she was so excited. And then I showed her an encyclopedia, and it opened up a new world for her. So the benefit is huge. It increases, I think it's probably obvious, but it increases self-esteem and self-confidence and literacy skills for her, and my self-esteem and my, sense of purpose. So again, we ask you if you can please keep us in the budget and increase by 10%. Thank you.
Next speaker is Sally Pinto, and she will be followed by Gloria Jordan and Kathy Hallis.
Good evening. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. I'm the interim director of JCY Westchester Community Partners and Division of Family Service Society of Yonkers. I have a unique experience though. I had a child who was part of the program, and she was part of the program in first grade, and now she's a senior in high school. So she knew the value. I saw the help that they gave her, that the mentors gave her. In fact, one of the little girls that was here before said to me, say thank you to Catherine. So she's completed the circle. She's given back. So whatever she got 12 years ago, 10 years ago, she's given back. So I'm proud that I was a parent for this program. I'm also proud that I was a mentor with this program. I did summer reading buddies and Wharton High School, and I felt the connection with students and the intergenerational value of it all. Because I was a little younger, but still, I felt that. And it's important not only for the mentors, but for the students, in that case, high school students, to see that someone was there to help them one-on-one. I became a program coordinator, and I was exposed to all the programs for JCY. And I was floored because we help in so many different capacities, whether it's high school, whether it's elementary school, literacy, after-school programs, we do that. Now, as outgoing interim director, like I said, my experience was unique at all levels. I feel sadness, but also satisfaction, because we continue to provide not only the mentors, but the students awesome opportunity, and we hope to continue that, as well as get an increase with Westchester Women's Agendas asking for 10%. I want to share my time with Bob Abadi, who is the mentor with our program.
I'm Bob Abbott. Good evening. I appreciate the opportunity. I've been a volunteer mentor now for 20 years, and I say to people that volunteering is the most noble form of selfishness, because you get so much more out of it than you put in. It's also made me a better grandfather. because I've worked with kids from the age of 7 and 8 to high school seniors. I've had the ability to work with these youngsters in many cases in math, basic math. Amazing how many kids don't know their multiplication tables, geography, where in the world they're from. And it's just a wonderful sharing experience. And I recommend it to every senior, retired person in this room. Go for it.
Thank you. Next speaker is Gloria Jordan, followed by Kathy Hallis and Laura Case. Ms. Jordan.
Hi, my name is Gloria Jordan. I have 2 children, grandchildren that I'm raising. One is 16 now, and one is 4. And I tell you, I have an autistic, which is 4. I am so glad that Family Service stepped in to help me, because I really needed help. And thank God that Betty Malone helped me to stay in my apartment for the children, because my landlord was trying to put me out, not because of rent, because he wanted the apartment to give to someone else. But I thank God for that. Family Service of Society has been really good with my kids. They have had them books, they taught them, they gave them encouragement, and they did a lot of things for us. And I just wish you could give us the 10%, and we will be glad. Thank you.
Kathy Hallis, followed by Laura Case and Lauren Brady.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to talk to you this evening about child care. Kathy Hallis, Executive Director of Child Care Council of Westchester. Thank you for your support over the years, and since your administration has taken office. Great progress has been made on child care. Each of the last 2 budgets included an increase in the child care subsidy rate, and 45 new Title 20 subsidy slots were added. This is great, but there is, of course, a need to do much more, but happily an opportunity to do so. Most of the funding for Westchester's child care subsidy program is federal and to a lesser degree state. Recently, Westchester DSS learned that its subsidy allocation from the state was increased by $3.6 million over last year, a huge jump. This historic increase to Westchester was driven by a historic increase in child care funding at the federal level, brought about in no small part by Congresswoman Nina Lowen. So with the current level of local funding and the additional federal and state dollars, you could take several important steps next year to create additional access for parents and improve child care quality. First, a 10% increase in subsidy reimbursement rates so child care businesses can meet the next minimum wage increase and hopefully reduce the staff turnover that continues to escalate. Child care salaries are notoriously low, in many cases at or slightly above minimum wage, so when the minimum wage goes up, these businesses are impacted immediately and dramatically. It is impossible for these programs to comply with state law and hire and retain staff without a substantial rate increase. We hear from directors all over the county that it's getting harder to recruit and retain staff. A local director told me that this September she lost a new hire at Starbucks. Other area child care professionals have gone into the city drawn by pre-K salaries which are significantly higher. It is time to recognize the unique impact early learning has on children's outcomes by offering professional salaries and benefits to its workforce. A 10% increase sounds like a lot, and it would cost about $2.5 million, but even with that increase, Westchester's subsidy reimbursement rates would still be well below the latest state reimbursement rates issued by the state. Second, we recommend reducing the parent share by 2% from 27 to 25. This would cost about $700,000. Westchester's parent share was briefly 10%. It stayed at 20 for several years. It would be great to get there again gradually. The federal recommendation is that child care costs not exceed 7% of family income, but that would cost over $4 million to implement that here in Westchester. We are not asking for that. We believe that greater state and federal investment will be required to get there, but some parent share relief in the next budget would be welcome. Third, we recommend adding 20 Title 20 subsidy slots. 10 years ago, there were approximately 450 children in that program. Currently, there are fewer than half that number. Parents in the Title 20 income level cannot afford child care without help. 20 new slots would cost about $240,000.
Kathy, I'm sorry to report that we're past the 3-minute time.
Okay. The total bill, $3.4 million. That's under the $3.6 million increase you're getting through the state. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Laura Case, followed by Lauren Grady, and followed by Anitra Guzman Santana.
Good evening. My name is Laura Case. I wear a lot of hats, but I am here tonight just as myself, as a formerly homeless person. Over the past few years, some improvement has been made to our county's homeless system, including keeping drop-ins open during the day. But there has not been enough done yet. The homeless community is still not having all of its needs met. This is all too clear through the people still sleeping sitting up in hard plastic chairs in the drop-in and New Rochelle. It is clear through the women's shelter in White Plains, where there is no accessible entrance and people cannot come inside if they can't walk up a steep flight of stairs. It is clear through the fact that we haven't built or funded enough housing for low-income folks. We've made a start, but it's not nearly enough to meet the need, especially in the face of rising costs. We pay $3,000 to $4,000 for residential shelter beds, when apartments cost far less. It doesn't make sense. It is especially clear through the fact that neither men's drop-in site in Yonkers currently has working showers. One site never had showers, the other has showers, but they are allegedly forbidden to use them because they were built without a permit. The stated solution to this, asking homeless folks to go to travel to other facilities, is proving problematic and sporadic, especially for people with disabilities who really can't walk long distances. Imagine going to work without a shower. Imagine living in a home without a shower. The real solution is putting working showers in every shelter site. Opening the drop-ins during the day was definitely progress, and I'm glad that that's taken place. But we need to go further. I've heard of people questioning why some homeless folks don't stay inside. It's because some of these sites don't have robust services and activities. For some of them, it's just people sitting in rows of chairs. So we need to do more. The county must dedicate a significant portion of its new revenue to improving our homeless system. And it should seek real input directly from organizers and, more importantly, the homeless themselves on how it should be spent. Those who have lived through the situation are the best experts. Thank you.
Next speaker is Lauren Grady. She will be followed by Anitra Guzman Santana and Fred Polvio.
Good evening. My name is Lauren Grady. I am the Program Associate at Arts Westchester. I will be ceding my time to Laura Ruiz, who is the Executive Director of the Picture House, and she'll be speaking on behalf of the arts tonight.
Thank you all. Thank you all for being here and for allowing us to speak. In 2021, the Picture House Regional Film Center will celebrate its 100th birthday. And as we approach our centennial, we are firmly committed to our mission of creating a shared experience through the power of film while keeping our eye on our financial sustainability and successful growth as an arts organization and a community hub for Southern Westchester. Since 2014, we have doubled our attendance to over 40,000 a year. We believe that we will do that again by 2023, thanks to the boom in development in Westchester County. Our members come from all over Westchester, and we field over 40 arts education programs in area schools from Port Chester to Yonkers. But today I don't want to talk about us or about the numbers, really. I want to talk about the bigger picture impact, the importance of community-based arts programs, and the ability of the arts to create and strengthen communities in Westchester County. We have heard an awful lot of need tonight. I am not denying that. We often think of the arts as a nice to have, but I'm here to say it's an essential component of our quality of life, of our economic vitality, and our ability to build
not just joy and creativity, but bridges between different points of view. There's so many different communities in Westchester, and the arts have a presence in each one, whether it's a theater, performance, a piece of public art, workshops at the library. The only organization committed to making the arts accessible for every single community and every single person in Westchester, regardless of location, age, race, or economic status, is Arts Westchester. As part of their commitment to the arts, they have grown their grant program over the years, extending it to more and more artists and organizations while having level funding. In fact, their funding is the same as it was in 2007. Strategic planning for a growing Westchester must include a strategic increase to Arts Westchester's grants program. The county legislators have been remarkable and generous and supportive, and we appreciate that. We're hoping that you can see your way to a slight increase, because in these times, the chance to invest in bringing communities together is an opportunity not to be missed. Thank you.
The next speaker is Anitra Guzman-Santana. She will be followed by Fred Polvier and Dylan Janot.
Hi, I am the incoming director of JCY Westchester Community Partners, a division of Family Service Society in Yonkers. First, I'd like to thank you, County Executive Latimer, Deputy County Executive Jenkins, and the entire administration for the support you've provided us thus far. We offer a range of services from home care, guardianship, kinship support, to educational programs for our students across the county. You've actually already heard from a number of folks from both of our organizations, Family Service Society of Yonkers and JCY, Sally, Janice, Charlene, the little girl who spoke earlier, and Gloria, as well as Felicia and Bob. And we have a whole row of grandpower advocates sitting in the middle right there, who wave, all here in support of our The services we provide are vital to the well-being of our community and the county. JCY Westchester Community Partners has served nearly 6,000 students and delivered almost 20,000 literacy sessions in the last year alone, school year. The results of the work we do is shared with us by the teachers that we work with in the schools we are placed in. Successes include things like children who are building their confidence and become more involved in the classroom, more responsive in the classroom by way of the mentorship that we provide. High schoolers who are passing their global regents exams, and improved standardized test scores as a result of our Reading Buddies after school program. We are providing services that are not only vital, but are also kind of unique to Westchester. Family Service Society is the only guardianship provider in Westchester County. JCY's volunteer program is the largest intergenerational volunteer program in Westchester. These are just a few of the reasons we are asking you today to continue to fund and increase our funding by the 10% that we as a group through WWA are requesting. This 10% is for organizational improvements that will not only improve our internal health, but ultimately lead to providing better outcomes for the community and the county at large. Thank you.
Next speaker is Fred Polvier, who's going to be followed by Dylan Janot and Richard Gegenworth.
The county spent over $600,000. It's over $1 million in today's dollars to alleviate the flooding problems in Lower Scaffold. This was done to make it better for all users. I'm going to go fast because I have too much to say. The result was that Bronxville built a closed, locked fence so that the only users who used it were from Bronxville school system. The ultimate Frisbee players who played on Saturday couldn't get in. The adult soccer players played on Sunday couldn't get in. The kids who wanted to fly a kite, the parents who came with their children or grandchildren couldn't use that field. In fact, this year, your high school, George, your high school baseball team practiced in a parking lot. You couldn't use that field that lays empty 99.9% of every day, even though that field is in Mount Vernon. They had no access to it. Totally Mount Vernon. And now you plan on doubling down with another travesty. 2.4 million to 4 million. To take a field, park, that's only in Yonkers, and give it to one community. To cut down at least 31 trees. To isolate it, to close it off so that people can't use it. So I can't use it, and I live in Yonkers. You should stop this immediately. This is a tragedy. You've heard all these people who have real need for money. This is not a real need. You're supposed to be against the elimination of parkland. The CEQA says, sequential environmental review assessment says they were going to try to keep it at 31 trees, to cut down 31 trees. The CEQA says there isn't going to be a pipeline for water, and yet it says there's going to be a pipeline for water in the place. It says that there won't be any environmental damage because it's already heavily used. In another place it says it's not heavily used, so we can do this. It says there's plenty of room for parking. Another place says we need more parking. This is a tragedy. This whole thing is a tragedy. It should be stopped for moral reasons. It should be stopped for environmental reasons. And based on what you heard today from all these people who have real needs, it should be stopped for economic reasons. My name is Paul Vadet.
He'll be followed by Richard Gegenworth and Carolyn Flockinger.
First, I'd like to say my name is Dylan Janot. I'm a commissioner with Eastchester Youth Soccer Association. I'd like to thank you, County Executive Latimer, for in this time, in this day and age, to be able to have a respectful back and forth. Much appreciated. It's not lost on the members of Eastchester Youth Soccer Association. I'd like to just say that what Eastchester Youth Soccer Association is advocating for is not any fencing field. We're not advocating for any rocks or anything like that. I would recommend that if people want to see what Eastchester Youth Soccer is about, to go and look at Parkway Boulder. It's another field right off the Bronx River where, yes, the kids are playing soccer, but once the soccer games end on Saturday and Sunday, you'll find people flying a kite, actually. I had some people come and play volleyball after my game just last weekend. So one thing I'd like to point out about what we're advocating for is, again, what the kids need. As a commissioner, some of my other commissioners are here today. I can say clearly that we are definitely in need of fields and field time. It's probably our biggest concern, and it's one of the biggest issues we face. I'd also like to point out that at the recreational level, we have almost an equal number of boys playing as girls. We don't discriminate gender-wise, all are welcome, and after the success of the women's team this past summer, we've got so many girls playing in our league, and it's great to see. So I would just like to emphasize that what we're advocating for is a multi-use portion of Scout Field to remain open, to not be locked, to not have a fence, and to give these kids the field space and the opportunity to exercise that they definitely need. Thank you.
Next speaker is Richard Gegenworth, followed by Carolyn Flockinger and Barbara Shapiro. Okay, Richard Gegenworth.
Thank you for the opportunity and actually for pronouncing my name so well. Rarely have.
Let's tell you, just time out. You come and look at the way people write. What can I tell you?
Thank you for that. I am a resident of 19 years. And I'm bringing focus again back to Scout Field, although I definitely appreciate all the valuable community programs that we've heard about tonight. I want to minimize my speaking time to give more back to them. When I moved into the community, we viewed this field as an asset. It's one of the reasons we went across the street from it. It has not been a well-maintained asset over the years. We have been less and less able to bring our children to use it for other things. And so truncating my comments a little bit here, but essentially I think that we have to look at the assets that are available in the community. I think as a coach for Eastchester Youth Soccer as well, I'm advocating the same things you just heard, so I'm not going to repeat those points. We're not saying it should be a closed environment. I think it should be an open environment. Parkway Oval is a good model of that, and that winds up actually being the place I bring my children now, because this field is unusable in its current state. I think we've already established that we're using all kinds of other fields. We're using private school fields, college, so we don't have local community-based fields available. So that is a real issue. And I believe that the conversion of this open playing field has been essentially piloted with the field across the river, where we don't have an environmental impact that's connected to that. Now, granted, there are restricted access issues to that, and I don't think we should do that again. However, I do think that what has happened is that the dog users have squeezed out other users. You can't play frisbee there. You can't play catch there. You can't play soccer there with the condition of the field. And essentially, all of the pets using is the toilet. And there's no cleanup, there's no responsibility. I think you should give this asset to people who will maintain it, who will care for it. Parkway Oval has improved in its condition over the years that I've seen it. And again, that's probably an 8-year period for soccer, primarily, but we go there for other things as well. And I believe that this could be a similar model for us. So I support it.
The next speaker is Carolyn Fluckinger. Carolyn, I see you have a lot of people behind you. Now, there are people waiting to speak, so normally when we get a card, that's 3 minutes.
Don't worry.
I don't know how you're going to handle that, but that's...
I'm going to handle it very handily.
Okay. 3 minutes. Go.
I just wanted to introduce you to these women who are grandpower advocates. They advocate for other caregivers, raising grandchildren and relative children, and they are also raising grandchildren themselves. I'm the director of the JCY Kinship Support Program of the Family Service Society of Yonkers. And we really appreciate you holding this public input meeting. Grandparents and relatives are the only large-scale resource for vulnerable children. In Westchester County, there are over 7,500 grandparents and relatives raising children. Many of the caregivers raising the children are older, single women with multiple health issues and living on limited fixed income. 95% of the children in their homes are not in formal foster care. These grandparents and relatives keep the children connected with their families and prevent them from entering the foster care system. Children live with their grandparents and other relatives for the same reason children enter foster care: parental abuse and neglect, mental illness, abandonment, incarceration, and so on. Unlike foster care parents, these relatives, caregivers get very little support from the government and child welfare agencies. They receive neither the services nor the financial assistance provided to foster parents. The cost of kinship foster care is far less than kinship care is far less than foster care because they are reimbursed less. A child in kinship care receives about $6,500 per child, and in informal care. But when you compare that to foster care, those placements cost $21,000 to $56,000 a year. This is a tremendous savings to the county and the taxpayers. But they lack many basic necessities. These kinship families often face great obstacles accessing public benefits and the supports that they need for their children. And that's why we have a program like the Kinship Support Program at the Family Service Society of Yonkers. It's the most comprehensive one in the state and in the county, and we provide care to all caregivers in the county. I'd just like to give a little bit of my time to Jada Seeger.
There's almost no time left, Caroline. Realistic, and here's the problem. I have these many other people waiting to speak.
Yeah,
If I knew that you had multiple speakers in advance, that would be one thing. But here's what I'd like you to do. Let each person introduce themselves by name, and that will suffice, okay? That's all I can ask you to do. Otherwise, you're making other people wait an additional 15 to 20 minutes.
Nobody else is speaking. I just said, hope Jada,
If they introduce themselves, we're happy to hear their name. We appreciate you being here. It's just we have a limited amount of time. We still have plenty of speakers left. Okay, and that's when we do that multiple thing, we don't know about it. That's all. Just say your name, hello, and we're happy that you're here. Right into the microphone, dear.
My name is Jada. My name is Jada Sigrid.
Thank you.
You can submit your
My name is Dorothy Thompson.
My name is Pamela Twine.
You know me, Gloria Jordan.
Sing for it.
My name is Marcia Spencer.
I'm Sharon Johnson.
Some of the people whose names were announced have cards waiting to be called. So if you do want to speak individually, I'm happy to do that. But when I have another 20 speakers left, I have to go back to, no, that's fine. I'm just telling you why I'm playing it this way, so everybody understands I'm trying to be fair. Barbara Shapiro is the next speaker, followed by Pamela Twine and Carol Sturr.
Good evening. I'm Barbara Shapiro, an artist who takes classes at the Center for the Arts, located on the bottom floor of the County Center, a space built specifically for the arts. The Art Center is currently under the auspices of the Westchester Community College. This arrangement will terminate in May at the end of the spring 2020 semester. We need to keep the Center for the Arts open. It's our understanding that the Rye Art Center has expressed interest in taking over a portion of the original space allocated to the Center for the Arts. We see this merger as a win-win situation for both the county and Rye. The county would be a better for the arts of Westchester, as it has been, and with the addition of Rye, it would be able to take advantage of Rye's educational outreach program for children on this side of the county. We would like to know if you could tell us where the negotiations are now between the county and Rye, what are the stumbling blocks to the completion of this merger, and what can we, the students and artists of the Center for the Arts, do to support this effort? And lastly, if this merger does not take place, will the Department of Parks and Recreation take us on again? We need to keep the arts alive. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Analysis. Mr. Shapiro, did you ask a question? That's part of what we're discussing now with the budget. When the budget comes out, we will address those issues at that time, and then we comment before the Board of Legislators. Pamela Twine, followed by Carol Stern and Richard Newhouse. Pamela Twine.
Pamela Twine is with this group, but she's not in the room. She's going to give her time to Jada, if that's okay.
Okay, sure. Whoever the next person who wants to give the time to. Who's the person speaking on behalf of Pamela Twine?
Jada.
She's got to come up to the microphone, and I'm happy to hear her. I hope you understand, I understand this discomfiture. but we're trying to get through this, and people are waiting to speak, and we want to make sure everybody gets through it okay.
Good evening. My name is Jada. I am from the Family Service Society of Yonkers from JCY. Today I will be speaking about the Kingship and YES program. The YES program means a lot to me because it teaches me a lot of different stuff that I haven't learned in school. This program gives me many opportunities available to me and others that I wouldn't have. I appreciate and love this program. Please, I am asking for a 10% increase. The Kingship program also means a lot to me because it gives me chances to go places and experiences that I wouldn't be able to have if it weren't for the Kingship program. It has helped me in many ways and many others in many ways. For example, they give away back to school supplies and took us to places like apple picking, movies, and many more. Please, I'm asking you senators to continue support these programs and for a 10% increase that the program can go on. Thank you for your time.
Next speaker is Carol Stern. She will be followed by Richard Newhouse. And the next card I have says Mary. Mary knows who Mary is.
Mary left.
Mary left.
No longer here.
Then the next person after that will be Rosemary Domas. Carol Stern.
Hi, I'm Carol Stern, and I'm basically going to follow up on what Barbara said, and I'm here to beg you to keep the Center for the Arts open. It's been a wonderful facility. I've been a student there for 28 years. I've been a volunteer there, and I'm a jewelry artist, and there's no other place in Westchester, even in the city, that compares to it. And most of us are mature adults at this point. But we do have student classes, and we have had Westchester Community College students, and it would really be sort of criminal if this place was allowed to close. And anything you can do, anything we can do, please let us know. So, thank you.
Richard Newhouse, followed by Rosemary Domas and Lori Lerner.
County Executive, I'd like to thank you for providing this opportunity for us to speak, especially before you submit the budget. I think it's a great idea, and hopefully you'll continue doing it. I'm here today to speak to you as a senior citizen. Believe it or not, I am a senior citizen. It's hard for me to believe it too, but I'm here particularly to talk about high taxes and how it's affecting senior citizens. And I'd like to propose a solution. County Executive, it's kind of along the lines that I talked about when Senator Gilbert, you were at the meeting for her town hall meeting. I'd like to stay in my senior years and I guess age in place. I'm currently serving on the Traffic Safety Board. I've been doing that for a number of years. I'd like to continue to do that, but the taxes are getting really very high. The federal government hasn't helped a lot, as you guys know. I raised all of my 3 children here in Westchester County. They're all adults now. They've given me grandchildren, but unfortunately they could not stay in Westchester County. They've gone down to Austin, Texas. The reason I bring that up is Austin, and particularly Texas, is not particularly known as a progressive state, as you can well imagine. But aside from letting seniors into state parks for free, they've come up with a really novel idea for senior citizens, and that is school taxes represent about half of our taxes, and the same is true in Texas. But interestingly enough, when you get to be a senior citizen in Texas, they freeze your taxes at the absolute value it is when you become a senior citizen. Unlike the STAR program in New York State, which gives you a percentage off of an ever-increasing amount, which is not really very helpful when you think about it. In Texas, the taxes are frozen at the absolute value it is when you become a senior. And I guess the theory is you've been paying taxes all your life, and when you get to be a senior, you've paid for it all your life, and particularly with school taxes, you don't have kids in school anymore. What I'd like the county to think about is doing something like that for senior citizens. When you get to be a senior citizen and you've been paying taxes all your life...
Just for the record, I'm there already.
It would be nice if the county would consider freezing the taxes at the same level they were when you got to be a senior citizen and not continually increasing them.
I think that would make it a lot more palatable for senior citizens to age in place and stay in the county. A lot of people would like to stay in Westchester County, but they can't because the taxes are just too high. People don't want to leave the county. I think that that would be something that would be really palatable. It's a non-political issue, whether you're a Democrat or a Republican or an independent. I think that that's something everybody could get behind, so I would really ask that you give that due consideration. Thank you very much.
But you do need to understand something. What you suggest is not within the authority of the county government. New York State has the power to set the levels of taxation, and the program that you described that exists in Texas would have to be adopted by the state government and applied to all the local taxes. And for the record, if you pay, I'll give you a round number, if you pay $20,000 a year in total property taxes, you pay about $13,500 to your school district, about $3,000 give or take to the town, to the county, and a little bit less than $3,000 to wherever else you live, town village or the city or what have you. The actual number, the actual percentage is about 65% of school taxes, and then the remaining 35% is roughly even, not quite, but between the county and the other local governments, just so we have our facts, not that I'm trying to correct you, but just so you know the numbers. So it is 2/3 of your school taxes, and that tax levy is determined, not the levy, the rules around which what you propose would be done would be within the authority of the state, not the local government, just so you understand. But I will make sure that state legislators get your comment when we recap these notes so they understand what you suggested. There may be some bills in the state legislature along those lines.
That'd be great. Thank you very much.
Rosemary Domas, I probably pronounced your name in 3 different ways. You'll help me in a second. Thank you. Lori Lerner and Liz Zimmerman, I guess, and Carla Horton.
So I'm here also representing Friends of Scoutfield, and so I'm a numbers person, and I like to think about numbers and statistics and analytics. We've had a number of people speak about the environmental concerns, but I'm also a parent of a Division I athlete at the Ohio State, so he's worked his tail off, and he played soccer with Eastchester when I lived in Eastchester, now I live in Yonkers, so I get the importance of soccer fields. But I also work for the Wildlife Conservation Society, and I see the incredible devastation that's happening in our world at large. So as much as I love my son's sports and I love sitting on the sidelines, I love Mama Earth way more. And statistically, if you look at the population in Eastchester, which we know encompasses Bronxville, Tuckahoe, and Eastchester, there's roughly, at least this is according to the websites I pulled up recently, 5,900 students. To give some scope, Scarsdale has 4,800 students. Yonkers has 25,000 students, and Mount Vernon has 8,000 students. I'd love to understand how many workable fields they have in their districts. My guess is Eastchester could probably double at least. I was a substitute teacher in the Yonkers school district, and I've seen those fields, and they are horrible. So I think funds should be appropriated to really work on those fields in Mount Vernon and Yonkers. But just to get back to the statistics, when I went on the Eastchester website, it noted, so this was the information available today on the website, they play soccer for spring and fall season about 19 weeks a year. So that's 36% of the year's weeks. But within those 36 weeks, or of those 7 days of a week, they only play soccer 2 days a week on Saturdays and Sundays. So that means you take, of those days, it's 38 days a year that will actually be used for those soccer fields, which is less than 10%. So why would we take this amazing field that's used by so many people 7 days a week, 365 days a year for a 10% usage? So that in itself is really concerning. So again, I'm not saying anything differently that people have said before, but it's really a beautiful field. It's an equal opportunity field, and you can see we're here en masse. We really support each other, and we really believe in the field itself. There's a lot of great friendships that are built there, and we invite the Eastchester people as their field is under construction over by the cattle field. We've seen an abundance of dogs from Bronxville migrating over. And again, it's just great friendships that are built, and the more the merrier.
Followed by Liz Zimmerman, Carla Horton, and Terry Powell. Lori Lerner. Is Lori Lerner here? Lori Lerner going once? I guess Ms. Lerner is not with us. We apologize that she must have had to leave early. So then we'll go to Liz Zimmerman, Carla Horton. Terry DePaulo will follow, and Amy Sinisowski. I'm sorry, I must have mispronounced that, but I apologize. Sorry. Liz Zimmerman, Carla Horton.
Good evening. My name is Liz Zimmerman, and I serve as the Vice President of the Board of Directors of Hope Store. Thank you for holding this hearing and giving Hope Store and other county organizations an opportunity to speak about our needs. Hope Store is grateful for the support we've received over the years from the county. County support helps fund our domestic violence counseling, support groups, advocacy, and prevention work. I'd like to give you a few figures about the number of people that Hope Store provided services for last year. Our prevention efforts touched the lives of nearly 10,000 young people, resulting in the following outcomes. The number of teens who would tell no one about abuse dropped from 25% to 16%. The number of teen victims who would tell a parent grew from 25% to 41%. The number of teens who would tell a friend grew from 66% to 84%. These are significant increases. County support is also vital in that it provides the critical match needed for our federal funding. Our culturally adept and trauma-informed services keep people alive. We call particular attention to danger assessment, safety planning, and shelter. Shelter being the #1 defense against domestic violence homicide. Keeping people alive requires expert staff who are experiencing unprecedented challenges in staffing and retention. Most leave resigning and express sadness about leaving Hope Store, but their new opportunities include things such as salary increases. These unfilled positions cause undue stress and trauma for our existing staff who struggle to meet the needs of those we serve. I'd like to introduce Carla Horton, our Executive Director.
A card-carrying member as well of the Westchester Women's Agenda and Nonprofit Westchester. You've heard about our request for an across-the-board 10%. I would just tell you that probably more than any other thing, we need money for the match for the federal dollars that we got. We got $1.9 million grant award this year to launch the Hope Store Legal Center, and got an increase in our counseling and support group support from the Office of Victim Services, raising us 37%. But those new dollars, and the old ones, require a 25% match from non-federal sources, private dollars. And I would just say that 10% would go a long way in helping us to help leverage even more funds into the county. Thank you all very much.
Thank you all. Terry DePaulo, Amy from My Sister's Place, and Jennifer Ryan Sefsa. Terry DePaulo, is she here? Terry? DePaulo, she left? Okay. Then Amy, pronounce your last name so I don't butcher it the next time I have to say it. Say that? Sinisowski.
Doesn't matter.
It's okay, no matters, I won't get it right if I can.
It's my husband's name.
She will be followed by Jennifer Ryan Sefsa and Randy Martinez.
My name is Amy Sinisowski, and I'm the Chief Program Officer at My Sister's Place, which provides advocacy, supportive services, shelter, legal assistance, and prevention education around the issues of domestic violence and human trafficking. On behalf of our CEO, Karen Cheeks-Lomax, and our Board of Directors and staff, I want to thank County Executive Latimer, Deputy County Executive Jenkins, the BOL, and county agencies that have supported our work over the many years for recognizing that partnering with us to address the scourges of domestic violence and trafficking is a matter of public health, public safety, and quality of life for the residents of Westchester County. We can't do this work alone, and we are grateful to have county government on our side. My Sister's Place is a proud and long-standing member of the Westchester Women's Agenda. And again, we want to thank the county exec and his colleagues for taking the time to meet with so many members of the Women's Agenda last week to understand the collective value that our nonprofit agencies bring to underserved community members in the county. You heard our CEO, as well as other WWA colleagues, speak so fervently about the needs that our agencies address and the money that our agencies save the county through eviction prevention, entrepreneurship programs, affordable housing, childcare, access to health care, and access to justice. My Sister's Place is here to reiterate the Westchester Women's Agenda request to increase county funding across the nonprofits we represent by at least 10%. Nonprofits like My Sister's Place, Hope's Door, Pace Women's Justice Center, and Legal Services of the Hudson Valley, to name a few, have been living and operating in scarcity mode, and the impacts are real. We are unable to fully address the transitional and permanent housing needs of victims who need these options to live free from abuse, or to provide the level of prevention education that can help the youngest among us learn what it means to respect others and to choose healthier ways to communicate than through physical violence or emotional abuse. Our staff, who day in and day out shepherd stories of trauma on behalf of victims and survivors and help them find a path to safety and healing, are not paid enough to take care of their own families or to afford to live in the county in which they work. Professional development opportunities that help staff learn how to manage crises and understand the traumatic stories they are hearing fall to the wayside when program budgets are stretched thin. A well-trained, supported, and adequately paid workforce means a staff that is fully present for victims and survivors, and a county that is safer and healthier because of it. We know, County Executive Latimer, that you are taking the request of the WWA into consideration when deciding where to allocate precious resources. An increase of at least 10% would be a meaningful investment in the lives of those who live in our county. Thank you for holding these additional hearings, and thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you. Jennifer Ryan Safsell, followed by Durandi Martinez and Bruce Anderson.
So good evening. If you may, I think it would go faster if I would speak very shortly and let my staff share my time. So, come on up. As you know, my name is Jennifer Ryan Safsell. I'm the CEO of the New Rochelle YMCA. At the Y, we're way more than a gym. We do universal pre-K, after-school, summer camps, youth sports, youth mentoring, senior programs, and much more. I'm going to let Lisa share her story, but I just want to let you know that in 125 years, we've never been in the county budget, and we need your help.
Hello, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to you this evening. My name is Lisa Tadone. I'm the current controller for the New Rochelle YMCA. I'm a Pelham resident of about 25 years. I'm only in this position about 4 months, but my family and I have an important relative history for the YMCA. As you've already heard from my CEO and also earlier this evening from one of our board members, the administrative and HR head, also one of our after-school program directors, our demographics are grossly underserved. And so I have a personal story to share, and it's speaking to the petitioning for funds to expand programs that specifically address identifying those children with early developmental delays. So about 20 years ago, my youngest at about 18 months was showing cognitive and fine and gross motor skill delays. I was petitioned for early intervention through my school system, and at one point was receiving 9 therapies a week. And for a child that was nonverbal and had these delays, it was not always easy to find inclusive programs that would take her in and support and nurture her development, and what our therapists were doing on a daily basis to move her forward. Actually, the New Rochelle YMCA was one of the only outlets for her, and we worked hard over about a 4-year period, and she wound up being one of the highest scoring incoming kindergartners into the Pelham school system. And I really feel that it was the New Rochelle YMCA and their nurturing and support that made that happen. Just last year, she graduated from the University of Michigan, and she's on her way to, fulfilling her dreams in California. But it really speaks to the importance of the identification of those that are developmentally delayed, and the Nourishing YMCA lends itself to that. So thank you for hearing my personal story.
Thank you very much, and of course, as a member of the Westchester Women's Agenda, we support the 10%.
We are down to our last 10 speakers. Jorendi Martinez is next, followed by Bruce Anderson and Susan Ross.
Hello, thank you. I'm Jorendi Martinez. I am the Executive Director for Community Resource Center, and I'm so grateful for your time tonight, so thank you. Community Resource Center is a trusted entity and a second home to many families, as you know. We often deal with the most marginalized communities. Our mission is to empower them, and we've done that with everything we've got. We're under $1 million organization, and we have really utilized all of our funding to respond to the community needs. We've done Know Your Rights training, we've done education, workforce development, unpaid wage recovery. We have done the works, but there's one piece missing. We really need to establish and launch our legal service program. The community justice program is just about ready to go, and we need your help to make that happen. In the last 3 years, our immigrant communities have experienced heightened fear around family separation, given the increased ICE enforcement in the county and everything going on politically. You've heard some of my colleagues and my peers say how important legal services are, but it's also really important that legal services are culturally competent, that they come from community organizations that have really worked to build trust, that are accommodating to where people are, that are bilingual, that come from people who understand those services. So we are going to be asking for an additional $50,000 to help us launch this program. It's in addition to the workforce development support we get from the County Board of Legislators for our workforce development, but we really need the legal services. It's the missing piece of the puzzle. It's the only thing that we need, and we appreciate your consideration for it. I'm going to submit this statement and a small proposal. Thank you.
Thank you.
The Westchester Women's Agenda and Nonprofit Westchester, and we support the 10% ask. Thank you.
Next speaker is Bruce Anderson, followed by Susan Ross and Sharon Johnson.
Good evening, I'm Bruce Anderson. I'm the Democratic District Leader for this district, so welcome to the neighborhood. I appreciate your taking time away from your families, baseball games, Democratic debates, etc. to be here tonight. It's really...
Yankees lost already, so we're all done.
Darn. Well into what you heard tonight, thank you. I'm here to suggest a source of funding, about $9 million worth, to support these and other worthy causes in Westchester County. About 20 years ago, Westchester County spun off the Grasslands County Hospital into an independent corporation. The plan was for Westchester Medical Center to become like any other hospital in New York State, run by a professional management team and able to stand on its own without further support from Westchester taxpayers. Since that time, however, county taxpayers have continued to provide both direct and indirect subsidies to the medical center, amounting to an estimated $500 million over 20 years. These subsidies continue today, taking three forms: a zero rent lease on 40 acres of the county's property in Valhalla, exemption from all property and sales tax that are the mainstay of county government, and a direct energy subsidy valued at about $9 million each year. Little can be done about the first two items right now, but I think it's time to reconsider the annual $9 million energy subsidy. Many easily debunked arguments have been made to justify the county taxpayers' continued subsidies for WMC. None of them holds water. That's not the deal that's made. Some say that WMC serves a large number of poor people and therefore deserves our support. But other Westchester hospitals serve a higher proportion of poor patients and receive no such subsidies. For example, St. Joseph's and St. John's right here in Yonkers. To me, the most compelling argument is the medical center uses these taxpayer subsidies in part to support a very generous executive payroll. Much attention has already been given to the CEO's $2.6 million compensation package, including a scathing report by Comptroller DiNapoli in 2016. But let's look at some of the others. Consider for comparison Westchester County's distinguished county attorney, John Nona. If he serves 4 years in Mr. Latimer's administration, he will still earn less in total than the annual paycheck of WMC's general counsel. Take the salary of the county's commissioner of finance, add the budget director's salary, then add in the county executive's compensation. The three of them together earn less than 1/3 as much as the medical center's chief financial officer. In fact, 22 of the 40 highest paid public employees in the state of New York work for Westchester Medical Center. Every one of these earns 22 earns at least 2.5 times the compensation of any of the county's department heads. In 2015, after WMC admitted to committing fraud against taxpayers for the second time in 3 years, the federal officials said Westchester Medical Center's aggressive, intricate kickbacks and other fraud schemes threaten the financial integrity of Medicare and the public's trust in the healthcare system. Yet not one of these well-paid executives was held to account. Let's stop the nonsense and redirect taxpayer dollars to other vital organizations that truly have the public's interest at heart. Thank you.
Susan, hang on a second, let me do my thing. Susan Ross is going to be followed by Sharon Johnson and Dennis Hanrahan. Okay.
Great. So my name is Susan Kessler-Ross, and I'm a member of Indivisible Scarsdale and a concerned citizen. First, I want to say thank you for all of your work that you do and the opportunity to comment publicly on the budget. I'd like to support and follow up the comments that Marisol made. Through my concern and interest in fair voting practices, so important in today's climate, I was made aware of the kind of discretionary spending that the Westchester Board of Elections affords. I respectfully submit a request that you use this time period to examine the Board of Elections budget carefully and please provide no unnecessary funding to this county agency. I also request transparency into their budget, Board of Elections, and if requested by lay groups, provide us with detailed breakdowns on where the money is spent so that we can also use the time wisely and recommend cuts. All of this will ensure that money is available for the programs that are so important to Westchester residents, the things that we heard about tonight, and not reserved for wasteful or unsupervised discretionary line items and positions that may not be serving Westchester efficiently. And finally, I wonder if you'll please look for any other areas that there might be mystery budgets or phantom positions or anything in our agencies. It's so important with all the kinds of funding we've been listening to about reading buddies and all the things that we heard tonight. So please, thank you, and thanks for your time.
Thank you, Susan. I really don't want to comment after speakers, but I do want to just highlight there are 4 parts of county government that our administrative authority does not have direct and complete control. The District Attorney's Office, the County Clerk's Office, the Board of Legislators, and the Board of Elections. They are part of the county budget. We have some areas of authority in some elements, unlike every other department of county government, which is directly reportable to Joan as Director of Operations, and then to Ken and myself. But obviously the Board of Elections, Board of Legislators, DA, County Clerk have separate elected officials, and 2 of those positions are chartered positions, so they have certain authority that we cannot override. The Board of Elections, to a greater extent, reports to the State Board of Elections. That doesn't mean, though, that your comments aren't well placed. You do have to put the budget, you have to scrutinize every spending. I just want to be clear for people that those 4 departments do not directly do exactly what we tell them to do, as if all the others do. But from a practical standpoint, just so you know what we're doing. Sharon Johnson is the next speaker. Is Ms. Johnson with us? He's not here. Okay. And Dennis Hanratty is next up. And we have about 5 or 6 more to go. He will be followed by Howard Milbent. And I don't think she's here. Charlotte Golimby. She's here. Okay, we're waiting for you, Charlotte. Dennis.
Good evening, thanks for having us tonight. I have some handouts for people also at the end. I came to the nonprofit Westchester breakfast and I was recognized asking a question towards the end, but the time ran out. I came to your coffee and conversation, George, a couple of weeks ago, and I wanted to speak, and time ran out on that also. So I'm missing the Yankee game in the presidential debate today.
Yankees are over, they didn't make it.
What's that?
Yankees lost.
They lost?
They lost.
The debate.
The county supported us in the past, mostly through the county legislature. We're really asking that the county, your office can support funding for non-voting United tenants, especially our eviction prevention program. We've had support for that in the past. But really what I'm here tonight to ask for is support for an educational program. Most people in county government are aware of the great victories this year in the state legislature for tenants' rights. I mean, we got more than we had even bargained for. We got so many great improvements in the tenant protection laws. However, as I'm wont to say when I'm organizing tenants, the tenant rights you have aren't what the paper they're written on if you don't know about it. And while we have over 25,000 units of rent-stabilized housing in Westchester, the great majority of people don't know what their rights are and how to utilize them. So I'm asking if the county could fund a program that we would administer Mount Vernon United Tenants to educate all of the 25,000 tenant households in Westchester about, first of all, generally the ETPA, which does provide a lot of great benefits to tenants, but especially the new laws that were just passed, the Housing Stability and Tenant Protection Act of 2019, which got some wonderful, wonderful improvements in the law. It's going to really save the county money. When tenants understand what their rights are, they'll be able to better utilize those rights to protect their own interests and prevent evictions and ultimately emergency shelter costs for the county taxpayer. So when I did get to speak at the legislative breakfast, I sent Legislator Ben Boykin, and I think some of you may have seen it, so I'm just going to have that here, and it's got an outline of some of the improvements in the law. So I'm asking if the county could fund this from the executive budget, that we get some educational money to support us going around the county. Even though we're a Mount Vernon-based organization, we're the only funded staff tenant association, and we do provide our services throughout the county. As you know, George, we were the ones who got Ryan to adopt the state law a number of years ago. We also the agency that got Croton-on-Hudson to adopt the law. We played a key role in Austin in getting them to adopt the law, even though it's since been overturned. But so, even though we're a Mount Vernon-based organization, I get calls every day from throughout the county because I think we have a 35-year history of principled advocacy, and people recognize that. So I'm asking if the county executive office could support those programs. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to say Charlotte Galimbu next. I didn't realize it was a 12-year-old young girl. I would have moved it up because of the education line. So I apologize to Howard. Howard Probet would be next, but Milbert would be next, followed by Lisa Malazzo.
So I am Charlotte Galimbu, and you're probably wondering why you're listening to a 12-year-old girl talk about the topic of scout fields in the Bronx River. Well, I am a student at Bronxville School. I have been for the entirety of my life. And we are currently working on ecosystems, and specifically the Bronxville River ecosystems, and Scout Field, and the Bronx River in general. So so we are doing tests on how polluted the ecosystems are, and we found that the pollution rates have gone down dramatically in the past 12 years. And the reason we know this is because of studies taken from previous schools as well as previous years. And Scout Field was one of the main reasons it got less polluted, because people started like actually being there and trying to help out, and people who support Scout Field like generally have a passion for the Bronx River and that area.
So they have been cleaning up the Bronx River, and I find that if we turn Scout Field into a soccer field or something like that, that is enclosed and secluded, I find that people like me who go there to walk my dog, to play frisbee, to play catch, to throw a football around with my brother. I find that if we do that, then we can be polluting the river more, as well as taking away a chunk of land from people who have been using it for many, many years, and I find that that's not okay to take away something that people have had for many, many years.
Thank you, Shelley. Thank you very much. Next is Howard Milbent, followed by Lisa Milazzo and Susan Weisfeld.
My name is Howard Milbert, and I'm the Executive Director of the Osmond Children's Center and co-president of the Westchester Village Childhood Directors Association. I want to thank the County Executive for restoring funding to subsidize before and after school programs after the state cut the reimbursement rate and after years of underfunding by the last administration. This funding will enable child care centers to reopen programs and keep others from closing. So on behalf of low-income working families, thank you for your support of licensed high-quality child care programs. Thank you. One director in Mount Vernon broke down in tears because she was ready to close her program when I told her the news today. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Lisa Milazzo, followed by Susan Weisfeld, and followed by Zafiro Acevedo.
Hi, I'm Lisa Milazzo, a long-term Westchester resident. Thank you very much for your time tonight and for your clarifications, which were really quite helpful, so thanks very much. I'm here to speak on behalf of the Center for the Arts. We appreciate the efforts that have already been made on behalf of the Center for the Arts. We understand that negotiations have taken place. As my colleagues have said, we don't know what the glitches are. I'm here to just say that we have a resource that the community pumped $16 million into back in the mid-'80s. We have a wonderful space there. It may not be state-of-the-art as it was in the 80s, but it is still a wonderful space, and it supports a lot of activities for individuals of all ages, and we would like to see that continue. So we would ask you to continue those negotiations. As my colleague said, there are a lot of students there that would be willing to help with in any way that we can. And in the budget negotiations, if concessions need to be made to make the rent more affordable to various tenants, not just RAI, if that is going to proceed, we would appreciate your considering that. So thank you very much and have a great night.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Susan Weisfeld. She's followed by Zafiro Acevedo and Cheryl Bradley.
Hi, my name is Susan Weisfeld, and for 43 years I've lived in this area of East Yonkers, and I'm a board member of the League of Women Voters of the River Towns, and I coordinated the League of Women Voters Poverty Study for the past 4 years. This role was a personal wake-up call for me, as I always believed that ours is a wealthy county with very little poverty, and that's definitely not so, as I'm sure you're aware, because there are huge pockets of poverty, some of it under the radar, but the presence of many food pantries, free medical clinics, supplemental school meals, and homeless shelters is evidence that it definitely exists in a significant way. So from the beginning of the study, I uncovered a need which, as you probably know, I've been lobbying to change for the past few years. The county executive and deputy county executive have been very supportive, and I I've testified before on this subject. Half-price transportation cards for people, especially women with children who are at or below the poverty line. This cannot happen without supplemental New York State and county funding. The poverty level in Westchester is higher because of the comparative cost of living, but this low-cost transportation is a need for everyone in New York State who is challenged by meeting the costs of rent, food, and clothing. And for the working poor, taking a child to daycare and picking up can be an enormous expense. Transportation to work, to social welfare agencies, to medical visits, to food shopping, even looking for work can be a huge financial burden to those who must watch every penny to survive. If students can receive half-price fare cards, there must be a way to supplement public transportation for New York State residents who need financial assistance. Other cities and states have begun such a program, including all of Oregon, Los Angeles, Seattle, and New York City. And enabling those who need this assistance to receive half-price transportation cards would benefit all in the community. Also indirectly, it would generate more income tax and sales tax revenue. So I hope there can be some money found in the current budget to make affordable transportation feasible for those in Westchester who so desperately need it. And I want to thank all of you for your service to Westchester County. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sister. Next speaker is Zafiro Acevedo, followed by Cheryl Brannon and Ellen Wright.
Thank you. As you may have guessed, I'm actually pinch-hitting for Zafiro. Zafiro is the teen volunteer coordinator for the Yonkers Performing Arts Council, and you may have seen her leave earlier because she was here with a few of the teenagers, and it is a school night. They had to get home and finish their homework. Now, thank you for allowing us to speak tonight. We at the Yonkers Performing Arts Council appreciate the support your administration has shown for the performing arts in Westchester, and especially in Yonkers. And of course, we would like you to continue your support, also increase it. UPAC, the Yonkers Performing Arts Council, is an all-volunteer organization that for the past 44 years has provided free entertainment to the people of Westchester with your help. For many people, seniors, people living alone, families with young children, this is their Saturday night out. This is their entertainment, and we could not have done it without you. A big part of our mission is community service, particularly our youth. We began our youth initiative actually more than 30 years ago when we started a performing arts scholarship. To keep up with the times about 10 years ago, we morphed it into the very successful Yonkers Idol, but we wanted to do more. We expanded beyond that with our junior volunteer program. In our 4th year, we now have 20 students recruited from Southwest Yonkers, the lowest income and most densely populated quadrant of Yonkers, and I suspect of all Westchester County. Our students, who had never seen professional performances before, now spend their summer Saturday evenings at Untermeyer Park with the UPAC family. They have been exposed to Shakespeare, ballet, modern dance, theater, opera, and a variety of ethnic performances that reflect the wonderful diversity of the mosaic that is the county of Westchester. They love volunteering and work at many community events. In fact, if you happen to stop by the Yonkers Marathon on Sunday, you will see them there in their beautiful green shirts. Excuse me. Perhaps most important to their families is these teenagers are now not spending their Saturday nights on the streets. They are committed to working and serving other people. Your support has been integral in helping us generate an understanding of community service in this generation. We need your continued support and, of course, increasing your funding to the performing arts and the Arts Westchester will help us and enable us to reach out to so many more students. Thank you very much for allowing me to pinch hit.
Thank you very much. We have reached our 59th and our 60th speakers. And if there's anybody else who wishes to speak, now would be the time to get a card filled out so we can hear you before we close our session. Next speaker is Cheryl Brannon, and she will be followed by Ellen Gomprick-Wright.
Good evening, County Executive Latimer, Deputy County Executive Ken Jenkins, and your esteemed staff. I'm Cheryl Brannon, and I have the distinct honor of serving as the founder and CEO of Sister International. I want to begin by saying thank you so very much, certainly to our county government, as well as certainly our legislators, for the support that you've given us during 2019. As a result of that support, we have really been able to do some monumental research on Black women and girls in Westchester County. The first time this research has actually been conducted to give us some baseline data on the well-being of women and girls in Westchester County. This is built on the Obama White House Council for Women and Girls, and the specific areas that we have researched include STEM and STEAM, teen pregnancy prevention, maternal health and healthy lifestyles, entrepreneurship, pay equity and economic prosperity, and suspensions, trauma, and the juvenile justice system that inordinately, negatively impact girls, certainly in Westchester County and across the country. So we will actually be officially unveiling this research on Friday with a conference on Saturday to continue to work with various community stakeholders so that we can join in with the county in your great efforts and certainly spread the gospel, working with various other stakeholders to help improve the lot and the issues that Black women and girls face here in Westchester County. We know that you are supporters of all populations here within Westchester County, and that you want to see us all thrive, and guess what? That's what we want as well. So we want to be a partner in that, and we certainly want to say thank you for your support thus far. And while we're challenged at this point in many regards, we feel there's a much brighter future. So again, we want to say thank you, and as a member of the Westchester Women's Agenda, we certainly support the 10% increase as well. Thank you again, and have a good night.
Thanks. I have no additional cards. Our last scheduled speaker is Ellen Gomprick-Wright.
I'm really fast to say Gomprick-Wright. It's great. Thank you so much. I'll make this short. I'm here just to voice my opposition to a soccer field at the Lower Scout Field. I know you haven't made any decisions yet, but I feel I need to speak. I'm not a dog owner, and all three of my grown sons played for years at EYSA. The reasons against changing this field have already been eloquently stated, so I will not repeat them. I will just focus on one comment. Previously, one of the speakers mentioned that, and I'm paraphrasing, that his main concern was making sure that the children had adequate field space to practice and play their game. I would argue that our main concern should be climate change and what we can do to halt it and reverse it. Otherwise, there will be no soccer in years to come anywhere, but maybe on another planet. I think that at the moment, the most important thing is to ensure that we safeguard any green space that we have now. And the Lower Scout Field has a beautiful green space with mature trees and a very vibrant ecosystem that I think we really need to protect at all costs. And that's all I want to say. Thank you very much. I really appreciate you giving your time and having this meeting tonight. I thought it was really worthwhile.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. is our 60th speaker slot. Some folks, a couple people shared slots with additional people. So we had over 60 speakers. Last call for anyone who hasn't spoken, who wishes to be heard. If no one else wishes to be heard, then we want to thank you for those of you who are still with us tonight. We will do this again a week from tomorrow night at the Field Library Peekskill, where we will convene again at 7 o'clock, and we will stay until the last speaker has been heard. As soon as that session is over, our administration executive team will meet, discuss the different priorities that we have, and prepare a document that will be submitted to the Board of Legislators on Friday, November 8th. They will begin their review at that point in time, and their public hearings will follow in November. And on or about Monday, December 9th, the budget in whatever form the legislature has finally adopted it will be in place. We'll review it, and if we have no objections to the final document, it will go into effect for 2020. But between now and then, you have next Wednesday night at Peekskill, and then 3 public hearings coming up in the Board of Legislators, one in Mount Vernon, one in Portland, one in White Plains. Thank you for being with us tonight. For those of you who stayed out to the end, this is what public service looks like, and we're happy to be part of that system. Thank you, Legislator Mary Jane Shimsky, Legislator David Giudiolo, and we were earlier joined by Legislator Terry Clemens. And let me just also thank the Director of Operations, Joan McDonald, the Deputy County Executive, Ken Jenkins, Copernicus Crane, who's our timekeeper, Gideon Grandy, who missed all of the events of the television schedule tonight. Chief of Staff Andrew Ferris is with us. From our Public Relations Communications team, Joe Scamato and Chelsea Pagano, and Steve Bass, our Director of Intergovernmental Relations, our Deputy Director of Operations, Emily Saltzman, Carl Pagano, also with our Communications team. Did I miss anybody? We're good? Good night.